I'm Patrick Frisbee. I'm the pack master, interim pack master of Cub Scout Pack 140. I took over from Mark Abels, who's now the Scout Master for Troop 140. We're here today to commemorate Scout Sunday. For quick little history, Scouts were started in 1907 in England by Lord Baden-Powell to try to help young boys that were kind of going down the wrong path, or the possibility of. He combined military discipline and aspects with Christian ethics and morals to build good young men. This spread through Europe. A couple of traveling businessmen traveling through England noticed the program, talked with Baden-Powell, brought it to the U.S. In 1912, we started Scout Sunday. It occurs in the same month as our Scouting birthday, which happened to be yesterday, February 8th. And it's basically to connect our belief in our God with the Scouting ideals, because they interconnect considerably, which we'll show you here shortly. So my cell phone is a bit smarter than me, and it knows to put Scouting stories in that phone every now and then. I read a story a few months ago from a young man who was an Eagle Scout, and when he went to his Eagle board, he told them that there needed to be less God in Scouting. He said, well, that would bring more boys into it. I was a little upset at that article because, much like our government, if you take God out, it's really not much of a program anymore. And a lot of our standards, our Scout laws, our oath, they're all based very heavily on Christian standards. Baden-Powell was a Christian. He understood the importance of having God in our organization. We've evolved through the years. Some things have changed in Scouting, some good, some bad, but we still have God in it. The one thing you still cannot be and join Scouting is an atheist. It's not allowed. Our boys are going to come up and read to you from the 12 Scout laws, and they're going to apply an applicable Bible verse, again, to show the connection between the two. Please be a little patient. We've got different sizes, so Mr. Tyler's going to have to adjust this a little bit. And some of our boys, boys and girls, may be a little nervous at speaking. I do want to take this opportunity to thank you, the church, for sponsoring us, that helping us to take these young boys and girls and turn them into the good, strong men and women of the future.
A scout is trustworthy. Now I'm going to read a verse from Exodus 20, verse 16. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor.
A scout is loyal. I'll be reading Luke 16:10. Whoever is faithful in very little is also faithful in much, and whoever is dishonest in very little is also dishonest in much.
My word is helpful. A reading from Deuteronomy, chapter 15, verse 11. There will always be poor people in the land. So I am commanding you to give freely to those who are poor and needy in your land, and open your hands to them.
A scout is friendly.
Romans 12:10. Be kindly fortunate to one another with brotherly love and honor, giving preference to one another.
A scout is courteous. I will be reading Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29. Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that in many benefits those who listen.
A scout is kind. I will be reading Proverbs chapter 12, verse 10. A righteous man regard the life of his animal, but the tender mercies of the wicked are cruel.
A scout is obedient.
I'll be reading Ephesians chapter 6, 1 through 3. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise, so that it may go well with you and that you may enjoy a long life on the earth.
Got it. A scout is cheerful. I'll be reading chapter 15, verses 13 to 15 out of Proverbs. A joyful heart makes a cheerful face. Hello? Sorry. A joyful heart makes a cheerful face, but a sad heart produces a broken spirit. A discerning mind seeks knowledge, but the mouths of the fools feeds on foolishness. All the days of the oppressed are miserable, but the days of a cheerful heart has a continuous feast.
A scout is thrifty.
I'll be reading Proverbs 6 through 8. Go to the ant, thou sluggard, consider her ways and be wise, which having no guide, overseer, or ruler, provideth her meat in the summer and gathereth her food in the harvest.
A scout is brave. Be reading from Deuteronomy 31:6. Be strong and of good courage. Do not fear nor be afraid of them. For the Lord your God, he is the one who goes with you. He will not leave you nor forsake you.
A scout is clean. A reading from Psalm 24, verses 3 to 5. Who can go up to the temple on the mountain of the Lord? Who can stand in his holy place? Anyone who has clean hands and a pure heart. Anyone who does not trust in a statue of a god, and anyone who does not use the name of that God when he makes a promise. People like that will receive the Lord's blessing. When God, their Savior, hands down his sentence, it will be in their favor.
A scout is reverent. I'll be reading from Mark chapter 12, verse 30. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind, and with all your strength. This is the first commandment.
Scouts, thank you. And this is, I'll move up to the microphone. There you go, Tyler. Yep. No, I'll sit you down in a second. I know, Mark, you just, So the Scouts came here in 2020, shortly before COVID, and we saw it as an opportunity to reach out into the community. And we did not do Scout Sunday. We did not do Scout Sunday in 2020. We started in 2021, so this is the 5th year that we've done this. And for those of you who've been here this whole time, you remember the first time we did Scout Sunday, it was like 3 or 4 kids.
okay? And and I'm just here, 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 here. Basically, half of our scout program started with our scouts, and this has become their church home over time. And so our scout program, and someone asked me one time, they said, what about the changes scouts making and all the whatever stuff? And I said, here's the interesting thing. I said, here's how the charter's written. The chartering organization has the choice on certain things, on people that they appoint to positions, and on certain truths that are taught. So some of the policies that are changing in the world, those don't come into our scout program. We are the chartered organization. And wherever Tyler is, there he is. Tyler's the one who's there every Monday night. I'm the guy that if Tyler can't solve the problem, then it comes to me. And you say, let's be clear, do we like for problems to come to Mr. Bryan? No. So everybody has said, let's work together as a team and we'll resolve it, and then Brother Bryan can just show up at events and go, hi. And then he has that cheerful face. So scouts, thank you. But church, for all of you who have supported with fundraisers or in bringing stuff when the scouts ask for something that they need, thank you very much. And especially for the use of the facilities and all of that, thank you, church family. And on behalf of all of my scouts, thank you very much. Thank you. So, youngins, y'all did great. Y'all did great. You're good. Yeah, when our scouts start, they start with the scout. They have the pledge, they have the scout oath, they have the scout law, and they also begin with prayer every time. And so, as we come to our lesson today, a couple things just want to remind everybody, and I know it's been mentioned, but unless something changes, March 16th will be our Sunday evening song fellowship out at Midway. The last time we did it a little bit late, and it was a little bit warm, and the ice cream about half melted by the time we were done singing. So we're going for a little bit earlier. But Ronnie's going to get that locked in and confirmed for us. And then next Sunday evening, brother from Mount Dora Children's Home is going to come and talk to us. And then June 1st through 4th for VBS. Our passage today is from the Gospel of Luke. And as you're turning to the Gospel of Luke, I want to read a note that someone left in the blessing box. Now, if you've noticed, there's a blue box at the far end of the parking lot. That's a blessing box. We were the second one of the blessing boxes to go up. The first one was at the health department. And someone left this, and it says, thank you to whomever stocks this blessing box. I try to check every Wednesday and Sunday. Please put water or single drink mixes and some first aid items. Thank you very much for your kindness. Signed, God loves you, Heather B., 2/20/25. And she got a heart for the exclamation point. Now someone might say, she said stock water and drink mix and first aid. Well, it's a blessing box. People come because they have a need. And so, you know, we've started to put together to be able to put some first aid stuff in there, and we try and keep water or other stuff in there. But the number of things, y'all, that our church has expanded into, and wherever you're at, Greg, you know, talking to our lady from Farm Share, she called me because she was calling the American Legion. And I said to her, this is Brian with the Church of Christ. She says, no, I'm trying to reach the American Legion. I said, well, I'm him too. And she said, well, we're trying to expand the places. And I said, let me help you understand. I said, a huge number of organizations meet in other people's buildings, and they don't actually have their own place. I said, so if you're wanting to work with the American Legion, I said, you can work with the Church of Christ. I said, you know, if you're wanting to work with the Scouts, you can work with the Church of Christ. I said, if you're wanting, and I named about half a dozen things, and she goes, And she says, thank you for explaining that. She says, my superiors stay on top of me because they want to be in more places in Lake Butler. And I said, you need to understand what I told you. I said, we're one of the few places that has something going on nearly 300 days a year. And so I know not everybody sees everything that goes on, but just the number of things. And Tyler got a message from, was it one of the aunts or whatever of one of our kids on Wednesday? That, one of our kids on Wednesday, this is their favorite place to be. They love being at church. And when they came here, they couldn't sit still for 2 minutes, Waylon, you're getting better. You can sit still for 42 seconds. So you're doing great, buddy. Yeah, well, even Waylon's laughing at that because he's like, yeah, I know. So lives are being reached. And as we come to our passage today in Luke 5, for those who are worried that I'm going to do my normal sermon length, no. But let's read Luke 5 together. And the Word of God says there, so it was that as the multitude pressed around him to hear the word of God, he stood by the lake of Gennesaret. And he saw 2 boats standing by the lake, and the fishermen had gone from them and were washing nets. Then he got into one of the boats, which was Simon, and asked him to push out a little from the land, and he sat down and taught the multitude from the boat. And when he had stopped speaking, he said to Simon, launch out into the deep and let down your nets for a catch. And Simon answered and said to him, Master, we have toiled all night and caught nothing. Nevertheless, at your word, I will let down the net. Now I want you to pause for just a moment on that. Okay. And I know Gene Black will never believe me. Gene, I used to be able to catch fish until I went back to preaching. Apparently I can catch souls, but now I can't fish crappie, You say, brother, the word's crappie, and that is how you fish. No, the word's crappie. I know how it's spelled. You call it perch in Florida, but it's crappie in Texas. But, if I was standing in St. Augustine and someone came in on a shrimp boat and they had nothing in their nets, and they said to me, yo, guy that we have no clue who you are, tell us why our nets are empty. I would answer and I would go, well, did you put them in the water? And if they said yes, I would go, well, beyond that, I don't really have a clue. You say, well, Jesus is the Lord of creation. Yeah, but he was a carpenter before he began his ministry. And normally fishing experts don't go to guys who do carpentry to figure out how to have a good harvest of fish for their fishing business. And you say, why are you making that point? Because sometimes over the years I've listened to people when they come to Jesus and they think that Jesus doesn't understand or Jesus is somehow lacking in knowledge about how this situation relates. And here's Peter. Peter says, look, man, we've been doing this all night and we got nothing. And I think that's Peter's way of almost kind of saying, you're a carpenter, not a fisherman. I've been doing this. This has been in my family for generations. But then his next phrase, nevertheless, at your word, I'll let down the net. You see, whether or not we think that Jesus understands or knows where we're coming from, you'll never know for sure whether or not Jesus has a clue until you do what he says. It's just kind of funny. Anybody can do plumbing. Now, Dawn's like, what? I'm looking at that smile. No, Dawn, really, anybody can do plumbing. You can take pieces of PVC, you can tape them with Scotch tape, and all. You can do it. But the moment you turn on the water at the main, you'll find out. You'll find out. He said, what does that have to do with this? It's not until it comes time to actually do what we're told that we'll find out whether or not what Jesus says will stand the test. You find out real quick, if you know nothing about plumbing, when you turn on the main and you're scrambling to get up out of where you just worked as you're soaking and water's dripping off of you. And you know what the natural reflex is when plumbing goes bad? You put out your hand as though your hand is going to stop the water. And it creases the spray all over your face. And it gets in your eyes. And then you're trying to remember, where was that main? God help the people that never found their main before they started messing. That's a whole different issue. You say, but how does that pertain? Until you submit to the process, until you do what Jesus says, you'll never know if what Jesus is telling you for your life will work. And that's the big problem in Christianity. We read it and we're like, oh, well, I can go get my own PVC. I can go get my own valves. I can just jam them together. It'll work. And the problem is, he tells you certain things. And for Peter, it was simple. Drop them now. Peter, but I did this all night. But you know what? Because you said it, I'll do it. There's no reason to listen to a carpenter who's now a Bible teacher about how to go fishing. None. And yet it says in verse 6, and when they had done this. One of the great principles of a proper education is arithmetic and logic. Now, I'm not going to give you a, quote, logic problem, Kevin. All right? I'm not going to do that to you this morning. Okay, maybe later, but not right now. But let me ask my children. Children, what is the scariest and most dangerous number that there is? The number 7. Because 7, 8, 9. Now you're going, that's bad. Brian, keep preaching because you're not a comedian. Yes, the other Brian Reagan, he's the comedian guy. But you know, we assign values to things. The whole reason you learn arithmetic, other than so you don't get ripped off when you buy stuff in stores, okay? The main reason that you learn arithmetic is so that you learn the value and the sequence of how things go together and how those come to conclusions or sum totals. Logic is when you move out of the realm of numbers and you start to see those same things in life. And I need you to understand that the Bible is a simple arithmetic formula in so many instances. Drop your net. When they did, they caught. This plus this yields that. It's the formula. You say, Brian, that sounds like Mark 16. Whoever believes and is baptized shall be saved. This, that. I can't leave out one part. Blank plus 1 equals 2. Now all of you are going, well, Brian, I took basic algebra. I know that other number's 1. You mean I can't put whatever value I want there? You say, no, you really can't. Okay? If we can't do that with something as simple as 1 plus 1 is 2, then how much more in the things of God for us to see what he says and say we can substitute whatever we feel and then still say we're going to get the same result that someone else got. So when they did this, they caught a great number of fish and their net was breaking. And they signaled to their partners in the other boat to come and help them. And they came and they filled both boats so that they began to sink. And when Simon Peter saw it, he fell down at Jesus' knees, saying, "Depart from me, for I'm a sinful man, O Lord." For he and all who were with him were astonished at the catch of fish which they had taken. So also were James and John, the sons of Zebedee, who were partners with Simon. And Jesus said to Simon, "Do not be afraid, from now on you'll catch men." So when they had brought their boats to land, they forthwith forsook all and followed him. Now, this is just a simple question. This is a question of how do you read? Now, don't give the answer, because I don't want you to give the wrong answer and somebody sitting next to you know that you didn't get the right answer. Why did he fall to his knees? Why did he fall to Jesus' knees? Now, here's why. Normally, he would have fallen to what? His feet. But they took in so much fish that the boat was knee deep in the fish. The lowest place that Peter could fall was to his knees on top of a bunch of fish. Now, Gene, that's a funny picture, because I know all those fish were probably, a lot of them were still flipping and flopping. So, he's kneeling down before Jesus and getting slapped with fish tails and everything else. It's a funny picture. You said, brother, I never really thought of it like that. Well, you should. Because I don't think as soon as the fish pulled into the boat, if you know anything about fishing, they flip around for a while, And then here's what he says. Depart from me, for I am a sinful man, O Lord. You say, brother, he probably said it with a lot more emotion than that. Oh, I have no doubt he probably said it with almost a sense of terror. I'm the professional fisherman with my buddies, and I did what you said, and my boat is about to sink because I've caught so much. You say, Brian, what's the point of this lesson? Well, when you look at verse 11, it says, so when they had brought their boats to land, they forsook all and followed him. Apparently, this was a massive amount of cargo, massive amount of merchandise. If Peter and James and John and Andrew are fixing to leave, guess what their obedience just did for their families? Those fish that they caught were the fish that were going to go to market, and Peter and James and John and Andrew weren't going to be there fishing. And so the Lord, in his command and their obedience, set the family up to be taken care of when these men went to follow Jesus. You see, sometimes when we start to obey Jesus, there's other dimensions to the picture that begin to unfold that are far more than the A plus B equals C. They didn't just catch the fish. They were in the fishing business. We know James and John, they were in it with their dad, and their dad had servants. And now I'm just going to tell you, this is just my opinion. I figure that James and John and Peter and Andrew, they probably said, Pop, go on ahead, take it to market, and make sure you cut Peter and Andrew's houses in on their share of it. We're off to follow Jesus. You say, well, you can't prove that. Well, I don't think they let the boat stay full till all the fish rotted and stunk, Gene. That'd be nonsense. I think they probably sold them. I think they took the money, and I think the families got paid for the work that their husbands and fathers did. And so something as simple as drop your net, get the fish, depart from me because I'm a sinful man. And then he says, come follow me. And the side product of all of it is the families are taken care of. Now I want you to catch that last part, not their families, but the other part. One of my cousins, by age, he was more like an uncle. His dad had already done World War II in Korea. And his dad was on active duty during Vietnam, and he was on active duty during Vietnam. And the orders would keep getting cut for his dad to go to Vietnam, and my cousin would keep re-volunteering to do another tour. 3 times he volunteered for an extra tours so his dad wouldn't have to go to Vietnam. Someone, well, that's pretty stout. Well, no, he thought it was pretty stout. His dad had already done World War II in Korea. He figured, Dad, you don't need to come to Vietnam. You already had 2 wars. And I remembered as a young person, and I wished I would have had this passage at that time in my mind. talking to him, and he was talking a little bit about some of the things that had gone on in war. And what he said was, I believe God. I believe in God. He said, but I don't believe God can forgive someone like me. He said, you don't understand how bad I've been and the things I did in war. And at 18, what did I know? Nothing. And I said, well, he forgave the Apostle Paul. If I would have been smart, I would have said, well, he forgave David, and David did far more than you. But listen to Peter's confession. Depart from me because I'm a sinful man, O Lord. And then Jesus says, come on, follow me. I wished I would have known to have said that to my cousin back then. You say, well, do you think it would have? I'll never know. You never know. But I want to say to you, if you're here today, and you're saying to yourself, now you say, yes, I know logically if you're here today, you're here today. Right, I got that. But if you're here today, and you have this idea that somehow you can't come to Jesus because you're too sinful. You might say to me, well, Peter became an apostle. He couldn't have been that bad. Have you ever met some of the people that work the docks? Have you ever met some of those guys that are like full-time fish folk? Some of them are kind of rough. You say, well, brother, that's true of any profession. That's the point. Any of us can be too rough. Any of us can be the people that no one thinks God should be able to use. And this guy says, I'm too sinful, you need to go away. And Jesus' reply is, dock the boats and come on and let's go to work. I want to say to you today, just listen to all that stuff that the scouts read from all those different scriptures. The time. When's the time to start cultivating joy? Now. You say, I'll start cultivating joy when things get better. Probably nothing ever will. It's one of those weird things. If you sow joy, you start to reap joy. If you sow love, you start to reap love. If you wait until everybody loves you before you become loving, you're probably never going to get there. It's like saying to an unlit log in an oven, as soon as you get warm, I'll light you. No, it doesn't work that way.